This evening, again, we're very privileged to have with us our own Joanna Savvides, who, as Father mentioned, has the title of Visiting Lecturer in the MBA program at the Emirates Aviation University in Dubai. Joanna has the distinction, many distinctions actually, as being the founder and president, past president, of the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia, an office that she held for 30 years. She was also the CEO of World Trade Centers Holdings Cyprus Limited and had managerial positions with Heinz and with the Campbell Soup Company. Moreover, she also owned Transworld Ventures, an international business development firm. Amazing accomplishments for a woman, Joanna. We're very, very proud of you. And I might add, accomplishments in a day where women did not or were not ordinarily recognized for their ability to do these, have these leadership opportunities and be a huge success in not only in business, but in international business. Remarkable, Joanna. Joanna reminded me that she and George are both very passionate about Cyprus. And among the many fruits of that passion is the lecture that we're about to enjoy shortly. I'm also reminded that if she desired or the need arose, she could deliver this lecture in Spanish, French, English, of course, and Greek, in Serbian, and in Croatian. Yeah. Her list of accomplishments is long and very impressive. We're delighted that you can be with us, Joanna. We're just looking forward to this splendid lecture. Thank you so much for consenting to speak to us.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I remember those times when there were no women in business class traveling to Japan, and here is little Joanna in the middle of all these men, but somehow I managed. And here I am, semi-retired, not totally retired, having more time to do the things that I like. Among those is Cyprus. Thank you to the Christian Rights and Freedom Institute for giving me the opportunity to share with all of you something that is very, very deep in my heart. Something that has to do with my homeland, my first homeland, because this is my second homeland as an immigrant, and also my Christian Orthodox religion. The situation that has been happening for 44 years, where in the north occupied part of Cyprus, Christian rights and freedom of religion have been violated. So why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? As Father said, we have to remind people. We have to remind people of power, people who can do something to help us in this situation if we cannot do it ourselves. And I will start with pointing out two articles that appeared recently in the US press. The first one is from the Washington Times, and is written by Mr. Philip Christopher, who is the president of the International Coordinating Committee for Freedom for Cyprus. He's very well known, and we're very happy to have Ms. Christina Christopher here, his wife. Thank you, Christula, for being here with us. The article has a title, "The First Modern Islamist Fundamentalist Conquest of the West." Is that northern Cyprus? Interesting, you can find it online. The second article I would like to mention is an article by Ms. Uzay Bulut, a Turkish journalist, which is a distinguished senior fellow at Gadsden Institute in Washington, D.C. This was published online first. I saw it online first, but then it was published in the Orthodox Observer. And the title is "Turkey Wipes Out the Christian Culture of Occupied Cyprus," written by a Turkish lady. Very interesting article. Also, in the back we have some copies of a memo that was written by the Consul General of Cyprus in New York. And the title is "The Deliberate Destruction and Eradication of the Christian Heritage of Cyprus and the Islamization/Turkification of the occupied areas." So we'll start with a little bit of an introduction or history, just to bring you into the idea of why we're doing this tonight. And then we have a documentary which is very interesting, not done by a Greek, but by a Dutch. Where's Johanna? By your compatriot, Johanna. Very interesting as well. So, just for those who don't know where Cyprus is south of Turkey, west of Syria and Lebanon, and east of Crete, and somehow Greece. So the next one's, here is a map of Cyprus. Please note the eastern Cape of St. Andreas. I was telling, where is Andreas? That half of Cypriots are named Andreas. There is the monastery of St. Andreas up on the tip of the peninsula, that everybody believes in him. Even the Turkish people in Cyprus used to go and pray to St. Andreas because it's considered miraculous. So what happened? On July 20th, 1974, Turkey invaded Cyprus and brought devastation to the country. And we will talk about what led to this event. 36% of the republic is still under Turkish occupation after 44 years. 45,000 Turkish troops and their heavy equipment are still on the island. 200,000 Greek Cypriots expelled from their homes. At the time, the total population of Cyprus was about 570,000 people. So almost half of the population was pushed out of their homes. Still, at the time was 1,493 people missing. This is another big area that the government is working on. Some of them have been identified in mass graves, to the point that families are giving one little bone to bury their dead. Sometimes families say, we don't want that. But they can't find a whole skeleton of the missing people because the Turkish army was burying them in mass graves and then moving them from there to another grave. And in that movement, everything was absolutely messed up. So today there is less than 500 Greeks and Maronites that remain in the occupied area. The Maronites are Lebanese Catholics, and there is a minority of them living in Cyprus for many years. There is an estimated of 500,000 settlers living illegally in northern Cyprus, and we'll talk more about it because this is a major issue, to have double the population from people coming from Anatolia, Sunni, Muslims, very conservative. The Turkish Cypriots are very secular. During the invasion, Hellenic historic monuments have been totally destroyed. I mean, the invasion was happening north to south, and the Turkish planes were coming to the very south, bombing Hellenic historical sites. No reason. There was no war there. There were no troops there. And a total of 550 churches and monasteries have been vandalized, desecrated, and destroyed. 77 converted into mosques, 18 used as depot for the Turkish army, and 1 converted into a luxury hotel, and 1 into an art school. We have more pictures, and you will see the documentary that talks about it a little bit more. And this is actually the subject of our lecture tonight, is the churches, the devastation, the taking away from the people their right to visit their churches, to have services in their churches. So, this is how Cyprus looks today. You see the black line? That's the buffer zone where the United Nations peacekeepers, the Blue Berets, Chris, are stationed. They are there since 1968. And where you see the red line are the British sovereign bases. Britain still has bases on Cyprus. So, within the context of Christian Rights and Freedom Institute, what is happening? Greek Orthodox Christians have been stripped from their right to religious freedom as well as freedom to live in their homes. And 200,000 Greek Cypriots became refugees in their own country. They didn't go anywhere, they were pushed south. So the population in the south doubled. And to set the stage so you understand why we're talking about Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, I'll give you a quick run of the history of Cyprus, which is very long, but I will try to do it in a very short fashion. The history starts in the 9th millennium BC, 9,000 years BC. Here you see some pictures from the Chirokitia, which is a World Heritage Site, 7,000 BC. A very nice place to see if you ever go to Cyprus. The 2nd and 1st millennium, the Mycenaean and Achaean Greeks settled in Cyprus, bringing the Greek culture to the island. Cyprus is the birthplace of Aphrodite, Venus. According to legend, Aphrodite emerged from the foam of the sea outside Paphos, and she ever since is the symbol of Cyprus. So the Greeks were in Cyprus for about 2,000 years before Cyprus was taken over by the Romans. The Romans were in Cyprus from 30 BC to 330 AD. The Roman period and Christianity. That's during the Roman period is when Christianity spread in Cyprus. Cyprus is in the crossroads between East and West. So all the disciples, people who were preaching Christianity, had to pass through Cyprus to get to the West. So the first ones coming to Cyprus were St. Paul, St. Barnabas, and Mark the Evangelist at 45 AD, soon after the death of Christ. St. Paul received 40 paramia, 40 minus 1, in Paphos. The column where he was tied and lashed still exists, so people can see it there. And ever since, he said, Anir Paphios ukestin agathos, which means a person from Paphos is not a good person. And even today, when somebody says, I'm from Paphos, we tell them, Anir Paphios ukestin agathos, I don't trust you. So, and then Apostle Barnabas, he was the founder of the Church of Cyprus and the first bishop of Cyprus. So, then Cyprus became a province of the Byzantine Empire from 330 AD to 1191. And because so early on Cyprus became a Christian place, even the Roman governor of Cyprus became a Christian. The art that exists, the Byzantine churches, and the art that exists in Cyprus is unbelievable. There are 10 UNESCO World Heritage churches in Cyprus. George and I have a plan to visit all of them. We just finished number 6. We have 4 to go. So from 1191 to 1571, Cyprus were under the rule of the Crusaders, the French Lusignans, and the Venetians. So you see all the monuments that were left from these people, and the Othello Tower in Famagusta, that's where Othello died. So, but after that we had the rule of the Ottoman Empire from 1571 to 1878, when the Cyprus passed to the British. I'm showing a picture of the Hala Sultan Tekke Mosque, which is in Larnaca next to the Salt Lake. If you travel by plane and you land in Larnaca, you see the Salt Lake. This is one of the most holy places for the Muslim people. And they come and pay their respects there freely. No problem with that. So the British rule, 1878, Cyprus was leased to Britain by the Turks. 1914, Britain annexed Cyprus because Turkey was on the opposite side during World War I. In 1923, under the Treaty of Lausanne, Turkey relinquished its rights on Cyprus, as well as some Greek islands, and now Turkey says, the Treaty of Lausanne wasn't good. Now I'm claiming this, and I'm claiming that, I'm claiming that. And in 1925, Cyprus was declared a British Crown colony. That lasted for about 30 years, and that was the time when all British colonies started their rebellion and started getting their independence from Britain. So the Greek Cypriots decided to do a liberation war, a guerrilla war against the British. Unfortunately, at that time, the Turkish Cypriots sided with the British. I mean, the British supported that. Divide and rule, and this is what they did. You know from your Indian history, the same thing. So, but in 1960, Cyprus becomes a republic, independent state republic. Some people are asking, is Cyprus a Greek island? And I always say no, it's an independent country, but it happens to be inhabited by Greeks because the Greeks were there 2 millennials before Christ. So the Greeks were always there. So the proclamation of the Republic was with the Zurich and London agreements, negotiated by Greece, Turkey, and Britain. What happened at the time? They became the guarantor countries. When Turkey invaded in 1974, she said, I'm invading because I'm a guarantor country to protect the Turkish Cypriots. Just an excuse. But anyway, this is what they still want to do. That's why there is still no solution to the Cyprus problem, because Turkey will not relinquish the guarantor rights. They want to come in anytime they want, and they're only 30 miles away from Cyprus. So Archbishop Makarios was the first president, and Dr. Küçük, the first vice president, the Turkish vice president. The constitution was so bad it never worked. Makarios was saying that somehow he was forced to take it because the negotiations lasted too long and people wanted to see a solution. But there were many flaws. So I'll give you a couple of examples, for example. The Constitution said that the police has to be 50-50% Greeks and Turkish Cypriots. Now there is 78% Greeks and 18% Turkish. Now we need to fill these positions 50-50. Positions were empty. They were unfilled because there weren't people, there weren't Turks to fill the positions. The same thing with all government jobs. They had to be 50-50. Again, it didn't work because simply there were no qualified people to take those jobs, and there were Greek qualified people who couldn't get a job because it wasn't in the quota. And there are many other things. So Makarios started some amendments. So he submitted 13 amendments. Of course, Turkey didn't like that. And in 1964, Turkey bombed Cyprus and threatened to invade. But they didn't. What happened? Major event, 1967, the military junta takes over the government in Greece. That was a big event at the time. In 1968, the UN sponsors intercommunal talks between the Cypriot Turks and the Cypriot Greeks. That didn't go anywhere until today. They're still negotiating. And in 1974, wait a minute, please. 1974, there is a coup against the government of Cyprus that was instigated and supported by the military Greek junta. And that was supposed to remove Makarios. I was there when it happened. The first news was that Makarios is dead, but then here he surfaced, he was not dead. And that was what Turkey was expecting, a reason to invade. And that was given to them with a military coup. And in 1974, July 20th, the big invasion happens, and Turkey occupies 36.2%. 1/3 of the country is occupied still. Here are some pictures. Just go through from the invasion, go through quickly Spiro, no man's land, tons of mines. This is the Green Line in Nicosia, still abandoned. A Cyprus Airways plane, that Cyprus Airways doesn't exist, but that still exists in the dead airport of Nicosia that is still closed, no man's land. Here are the buildings falling from the bombs. Famagusta, the most famous beach in Cyprus that is still under occupation. And here is the mountain sphere that you were talking about before. A huge flag on the northern mountain range of Cyprus. You come to the airport, you drive north to go to Nicosia, and you see that mountain in front of you with that huge flag there. And in the evening, that flag is lit, so you can see it day and night. It rarely snows in Cyprus, rarely. This winter, it snowed in Cyprus. And the people woke up in the morning, and the mountain is covered with snow, and there was no flag to be seen. They were so happy. God did what people could not do. So here is the, again, another map of the divided Cyprus. Let's continue. What happened at the time? Deliberate destruction and eradication of the Christian heritage of Cyprus. That was part of the military. Other than the killing, the hostages, the missing people and everything else, we're not going to focus on the political issue. We're focusing on the religious issue today. So the destruction and desecration of the Orthodox Christian churches, the extensive art theft, and we will see the documentary that is very good depicting what is happening with the art theft. And the theft has been taking place with the approval of the Turkish army. 3 weeks ago, even today, there is an abandoned church of St. Panteleimon in Morphou, it's on Myrtou. It's in the north of Cyprus. The bell was stolen. Now, the authorities there say, nope, we have no clue. Now, the church sits between a military camp and a police station. And they both say, no, we have no clue. And the bell weighs 300 kilos. So they couldn't just take it and hide and go. They must have brought equipment. But everything is done under their watch, and they don't care. The plunder served as a source of income for criminals and shady antiquity dealers, and we'll talk about it. What has happened in the Turkish-occupied zone constitutes pillaging of world cultural heritage. And UNESCO considers the international destruction of cultural heritage a war crime. They say that for what happened in Syria, they say that for what happened in Cyprus. Talking about stolen art, you may have heard of this because these mosaics that are from the 5th century in Panagia Kanakaria in Lythrangomi were found in the United States. You'll see how they were taken in on the video, but they were bought by an arts dealer, a lady by the last name of Goldberg, in Minneapolis. She bought them for $1 million, and she was selling them for $20 million, and she was caught. And she was sued by the Church of Cyprus, and thanks to the American courts, everything was returned, and she asked for no compensation. So, here is how the churches are today. What happened to the churches of Northern Cyprus? Keep going, Spiro. Goats. Nothing left. Here are the crosses. You see the church and the crosses. You know, in the old time, always the cemeteries were around the churches. When a checkpoint opened in 2003, George and I and 2 American friends of ours who were visiting there with us, we decided to go to the north. That was the first and I'm not going to say the last time I'm going there, but I haven't been there ever since. So we went to Rizokarpa, so that's the last village before St. Andreas. That's where George's, my mother-in-law was from there. So we went to the cemetery to find George's grandparents' graves. And we found the cross of his grandfather, but it was laying somewhere. We couldn't find where the grave was because it was such a mess. And then we went to visit the house of his grandparents. That house was very old, and it was in books in Cyprus as one of the oldest examples of old architecture in Cyprus. There was no house. We picked up a stone from the house. It was stone built, and we still have it in New Jersey in our home. So that's what they did. Let's go, here is another one, haystacks in the church. Destroyed church. Here is one turned into a mosque. And now we're going to take a break, look at the documentary, and then we'll come and continue with some comments and some discussion, questions, and if we can answer them, we'll be happy to do so. So, Spiro. Where Heaven Falls Prey to Thieves. I love the title of this documentary.
Cyprus is a treasure house of UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Sites. On no other Mediterranean island are there so many magnificent Byzantine art treasures as on Cyprus. The works from this period include icons, frescoes, and mosaics dating back over 1,500 years. On July 15, 1974, the Greek colonels in Athens staged a coup against the president of Cyprus, Archbishop Makarios III. 5 days later, on July 20th, came the Turkish invasion of the northern part of the republic. 165,000 people fled from the Turkish troops to the south. The whole of the north, 36% of the territory of the republic, is still occupied by Turkish troops, and Nicosia is to this day a divided city. After the invasion, there was a systematic destruction and plundering of all the Orthodox churches and monasteries in the Turkish-occupied north by order of senior officers. These were no Turkish Cypriots. Like the Armenian monastery, all the sacred Orthodox buildings have fallen victim to vandalism and art theft. Archbishop Chrysostomos explains.
Από ιερά σκεύη, από ξυλόγλυπτα, από εικόνες, τα έχουν αφαιρέσει και έχουν κατακλείσει τις αγορές της Ευρώπης και της Αμερικής και οι νέοι μας σήμερα, εκτός του ότι είναι λαιλατημένοι, έχουν γίνει αρκετοί μουσουλμανικά τεμένοι και λειτουργούν ως διάφτα. Έχουν αρκετοί ναοί δυστυχώς γίνουν αποθήκες διάφορων αντικειμένων. Έχουν γίνει κέντρα διασκεδάσεως και το χειρότερο έχουν γίνει στάβλοι ενός ζώου.
With brute force, like voracious treasure seekers, people behaved like animals and literally tore frescoes out of the churches. Top-quality UNESCO World Heritage artworks were destroyed, like the head of the Archangel Michael from the Church of Christ Antiphonitis, which dates from around 1190. Numerous artworks were not only destroyed during the robberies, but are now lost forever. The robbers were followed by merciless experts from international art dealerships. Using the latest methods, they removed the frescoes from the walls in order to be able to put them on the market in as sound a condition as possible. The wall fresco from the Church of Christ Antiphonitis, dating from the end of the 15th century, showing the tree of Jesse, was taken apart to order. The art collectors were shown a photo of the whole fresco, picked out the head that they wanted, and ordered it for a high price. And only then was that detail of the fresco removed from the wall. Numerous icons and elaborate carvings from the icon screens, frescoes and icons from Antiphonitis and other churches in the Turkish-occupied sector of Cyprus, worth more than 30 million euros, were found by the Munich CID in 1997 during a search of the house of Aydin Dikmen, a Turk living in Munich. The Republic of Cyprus is still waiting in vain today for the return of the artworks. Kyrenia, the most beautiful port in the Republic, is picturesquely situated at the point on the coast where the Pentadaktylos mountain range runs down to the sea. Until the Turkish invasion in 1974, some 4,000 Greek and 800 Turkish Cypriots lived in Kyrenia. Today, 28,000 Turks live here. Turks from Ankara, Istanbul, and Anatolia, with Turkish Cypriots forming a small minority. The demographic changes enforced by Ankara in 1974 create grave problems. In 1974, a total of 501,000 Greek and 116,000 Turkish Cypriots lived on the island, whilst today there are 730,000 Greek Cypriots plus 220,000 other people in the occupied sector of the Republic, of whom only about 85,000 can be regarded as Turkish Cypriots. Even this Christian site, famous in the life of St. Barnabas, nephew of St. Mark the Evangelist, fell victim to art theft after 1974. The monastery, which is open to tourists today as an icon museum, is a farce. Nothing remains of the original precious decoration of the church. Worthless icons of the 19th and 20th century are exhibited here in a haphazard manner, whilst the museum is self-proclaimed as the savior of the Christian art of Cyprus. Often, the search for plundered churches is made difficult by the fact that all the Greek place names were changed to Turkish on orders from Ankara. In Lisi, we met Turkish Cypriots from Paphos in the south of the island who'd left their homes in 1974, allegedly voluntarily, but in reality with incentives, sometimes threats from Ankara. Mustafa Şevket helpfully showed us the way. He's able to report in detail on the plundering under the watchful eyes of the soldiers. Inside the church, we're shocked. Chaos reigns, nothing but chaos. Here, not only have art thieves been at work, but there's also been wanton destruction. Nervously, Mustafa tells us in almost perfect Greek.
Είναι καταστροφή. Μεγάλη καταστροφή για τον τόπο. Φωτογραφίες εκείνες τις εικόνες, έβαλαν πανί, εκολλήσαν το, κοιτάζεις, είναι ο κόψας σε τεμάχια, Αμερική. Αμερική στο Ιούστον. Ναι, Αμερική. Και το ξέρετε το όνομα για άνθρωποι που κλέψει. Το όνομα
At that time, the church still stood in the middle of a Turkish military camp. Walter Moser, head of the art tracing section of the Bavarian CID in Munich, explains that the case of Aydin Dikmen is the most spectacular art theft of his career and for the CID.
Beim Tatverdächtigen auch diese Fotos gefunden, die belegen, dass er oder seine Mittäter aus diesen Kirchen und Klöstern Fresken und Mosaiken entfernt haben. Und wenn wir jetzt sehen, ein Bild von einer Wandfläche, hier wurden Teile bereits vorgezeichnet und ausgesucht, wie sie später in Natura dann nach Europa gebracht werden sollten. Hier sind Täter beim Abnehmen dieser Teile zu sehen. Hier in der Apsis wird ein Freskenteil entfernt und es ist zwar nicht eindeutig zu belegen, dass der später Festgenommene einer dieser Täter gewesen ist, allerdings, wenn man bedenkt, Aufnahmen beim Täter zum Belegen dieser Echtheit, dann kann man eindeutig von einem Tatzusammenhang sprechen.
Chaos akin to the end of the world. These are the vestiges of barbarianism. The church of Panagia Kanakaria on the Karpas Peninsula in the occupied sector is also one of the few remaining monuments to early Christian art in the Mediterranean region. The architecture of the exterior does not betray anything of the fate that also befell this masterpiece of Byzantine art. The church has been desecrated. All its art treasures, mosaics dating from a period between about 530 and 560, frescoes and icons have fallen prey to thieves. Parts of the apse mosaic turned up in America in 1989. In August, art dealer Peggy Goldberg had to give some answers to the district court in Indianapolis. She had acquired the valuable pieces in Munich and offered them for $20 million on the international art market. In the meantime, the main section of the mosaic has been returned to Cyprus without Peggy Goldberg making any claims for compensation and can be marveled at in the Byzantine Museum in Nicosia. The defilement of the Orthodox cemeteries in the Turkish-occupied sector of Cyprus is unimaginable. This cemetery on the edge of the village of Prophytis Elias is just one example. We saw only one cemetery in the north where there were no shattered graves or overturned crosses to shock visitors. Even from the outside, one can make out the plundering of the Christian churches. It's clearly visible. And then the inside of the church itself. As in all churches, this one in Prophytis Elias has also been robbed of its decoration. After 1974, almost 20,000 icons were stolen from the Turkish-occupied sector of Cyprus and exported illegally. The art markets of Europe and America were virtually inundated with them, so that even today one can still see a regular decline in the price of all Greek icons on the international art market. Famagusta, once the pearl of the Levant, the pride of the Venetians in the eastern Mediterranean, fell to Ottoman troops in 1571. Since that time, the Gothic Cathedral of St. Nicholas is known as the Lala Mustafa Pasha Mosque. Today, Famagusta is situated in the occupied sector of Cyprus. Even before 1974, the people who lived in the old medieval town were predominantly Turkish Cypriots. Today, thousands of immigrants from Turkey also live there. Bella Pais, or Beautiful Peace, has exuded untroubled tranquility for centuries. The Gothic monastery, founded in 1205 by the Augustinians, has not been used by monks since 1570. However, regular services were held in the Abbey Church right up to 1974. When the Turkish troops marched in on July 20th, 1974, Kyrenia and Bella Pais were the first places to be stormed. The people of the area fled into the monastery and remained locked in there for a year until they were forced by the Turkish troops to leave their homeland. To the Greek Cypriots, it was more important to save the icon of St. John the Baptist than their personal belongings. Today, this valuable masterpiece, which dates from 1605, is kept in the Byzantine Museum of Nicosia. The curator of the Byzantine Museum, Ioannis Iliadis, and Professor Charalambos Hotzakoglu from Athens have been trying for years to track down works of art stolen from the Turkish-occupied sector of Cyprus in Europe and America. They collect evidence in order to be able to validate and prove the provenance of works which are the subject of legal proceedings.
Όταν βλέπω αυτή την εικόνα και σκέφτομαι το πόσες τόσες εικόνες, περίπου 20.000 εικόνες, καταστράφηκαν, χάθηκαν, εκλάπησαν από τα τουρκικά στρατεύματα κατά κατοχής και από οργανωμένα δίκτυα αρχαιοκαπηλείας, δεν μπορώ να φανταστώ το χέρι αυτών των ανθρώπων, των αρχαιοκαπήλων, οι οποίοι πήγαν στις στιχογραφίες του Αντιφωνητή, πήγαν στις στιχογραφίες του Αγίου Θυμωνιανού της Λύσης, πήγαν στις στιχογραφίες της Αγίας Σολομονής στην Κόμμα του Γιαλού ή στην Παναγία την Κυρά, στα ψυχεδρότα της Κανακαριάς, και το χέρι τους κατέστρεφε αυτές τις στιχογραφίες, στην προσπάθειά τους να τις αφαιρέσουν, στην προσπάθειά τους να τις βγάλουν σε κομμάτια για να τις πουλήσουν, κατέστρεψαν αυτά τα έργα τέχνης στα μοναδικά. Είναι απίστευτη, και δεν μιλάω αυτή τη στιγμή ως ένας άνθρωπος από την πλευρά της Εκκλησίας, όπου βλέπει την ιερότητα μόνο των εικόνων, αλλά και ως έργα τέχνης μιας παγκόσμιας πολιτιστικής κληρονομιάς.
Everywhere in Cyprus, heaven has fallen prey to thieves. No swathe of land in the occupied sector of Cyprus was safe from them, not even the lonely mountain region which includes the mountain fortress of Kantara and the village of the same name. Here too, the thieves plundered and stole everything they could lay their hands on. Their banners bore the mottos robbery and vandalism.
As I said earlier, Nicosia is the only divided capital in the world today. In 2003, when Cyprus was just about to enter the European Union as a full member, the Turks wanted to show that, yeah, we accept that we're going to be part of the European Union as they are today, the Turkish Cypriots. So they opened a checkpoint, the first checkpoint in Nicosia. Now there's several, I'm not sure how many, but probably around 5 or 6 checkpoints where people can cross. Turkish Cypriots come and work in the south, and Greek Cypriots go to visit there. So in 2004, Cyprus becomes a full member of the European Union. Through the years, in 1974 until today, the United Nations have passed more than 300 resolutions asking Turkey to remove their troops from Cyprus. What has happened? Nothing. There have been several initiatives to resolve the problem, and they're still going on. Actually, Harry and I were talking, Chrysula, earlier. We have to invite Philip Christopher to come here and talk about the political issue, not the religious issue. So nothing has been happening. But we have to be honest, there is not much pressure from the West. Turkey is a NATO country, it's an ally of the United States, of Britain, so they're very, very careful when it comes to Turkey, regardless of the fact that governments recognize that there have been violations of human rights and religious rights and all that. But I mean, I've seen so many US presidents, nobody has done something to show that really they are interested and they want to resolve this issue. I was listening to our President Trump the other day when they had the celebration of the 25th of March in the White House for the liberation of the Greeks. And he said the following: we're here to commemorate the struggle of the Greek people to liberate themselves from a foreign empire. He did not even say the Ottoman Empire, a foreign empire. They're very careful and try to be very politically correct because of Turkey. If it was another country, things would have been different, believe me. So many, many big mosques have been built. Not the churches that have been converted, but Turkey invests huge money to build big mosques there. And the changing demographics. You heard that there were only about 120,000 of people who came from Turkey. We'll see how many there are there. So through the years, the religious leaders, including the Muslims, the Christians, the Anglicans, Christians also in Cyprus, the Maronites, and the Armenians that are minorities in Cyprus, they get together under the auspices of the Swedish embassy and they try to resolve issues. But despite that, things are still difficult. And the issues they're trying to work on are only the religious issues, of course. And in 2009, the Technical Committee for Cultural Heritage was founded by the UN. The European Union gave a lot of money for that to restore some of the churches or to support them, not to totally fall apart. Although just this week I heard that the Cyprus government gave €500,000 to support, just to structurally support 8 churches that are just about to collapse. 18 monuments have been supported by the donations from the European Union, and the monastery of St. Andreas was restored. That was the first one that was restored. It took a few years, but it's okay now, and people do go and visit there. Visits to the occupied churches, people can go, but they cannot hold services. When a church is celebrating its name day, say St. Andreas Day, 30th of November, or any other church on their name day, we usually have a big service. For that, there has to be received a permit, and certain people can go, so many people, so many buses can go, and they're watched very carefully by the Turkish troops. So there is a lot more to be done. What is happening today with all of what we said? More mosques are being built and more settlers are coming in, taking homes that the Greek Cypriots have left. In 1960, when Cyprus became a republic, there were 574,000 people, 78% Greeks and 18% Turkish Cypriots, 4% Armenians, Latins, and Maronites. In 73, just before the invasion, there were 632,000 people, and Turkish Cypriots, 120,000 still. Last year, the latest statistics, 2018, total Cypriot population is 800,000, including 80,000 Turkish Cypriots. You see, their numbers are falling because they cannot take the settlers. The Turkish Cypriots are very secular, very westernized, and all these people that are coming from Anatolia are very conservative, and they are not just happy about it. But the actual numbers would be 1.3 million, because there is an estimated 500,000 Turkish settlers today. Officially, Turkish Cypriots in Turkey do not admit that, but Turkish Cypriots say that there are 650,000 cell phones in northern Cyprus. Who has that? And also, bakeries in northern Cyprus bake 750,000 loaves of bread daily. Who eats all of that? 120,000 people, that means they eat 5 loads of bread each every day. So these are the numbers that we believe exist. The next one. The birth rates. What is happening? Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots are very westernized. The birth rate is only 1.3. While the Turkish settlers are very much encouraged by President Erdogan to have as many children as they come. We hear stories of 12, 14, we don't know how many, but they do have a lot of children. So in conclusion, Turkey's objective was to alter the demographic and the religious balance in Cyprus. And it seems that they're successful doing that. And the Christians, from 82% today, are only 5% if we take the 1.3 million. And the Muslims, from 18%, 45%. So in other words, pretty soon, we, the Greek Cypriots of Cyprus, will be a minority, and the Christians will be a minority in Cyprus. So, what does the West want? Do they want to support us? Or do you want a European Union country to be a Muslim country that is supposed to be the savior and the keeper of the Western civilization on Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East? So these are the questions we're asking, and we hope, just by talking about it, that we sensitize people, that people understand what is happening, and people talk to their representatives in Washington. We do that. We get together, we go as a group with Pseka and Chrysula's husband, who leads us there, and we meet people in the Senate, and we talk to them about it. But we need to talk to the local people. We need to talk to our friends, to our relatives, to our neighbors, so that they understand what's happening. And with this, any questions?
So if you would all please rise, we'll just have the closing prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We thank you, Lord our God, for the message that we receive this evening from Joanna, and we pray that you will bless her and prosper her, and you'll amplify her voice. We also pray, Lord, with gratitude in our hearts for the Christian Rights and Freedom Institute, that we'll be continuing into a new season, and that you'll continue to amplify the voice and the efforts that we're offering on behalf of the universal human rights, the persecuted Christians of the world, and in opposition to genocide wherever it may be. We ask this in your name, for holy and blessed to ages of ages. Amen. Thank you, everyone, for being here.